Okay, so welcome to Web Design 101. My name is Jeff S. I'm from NA, Minnesota. I'm the tech guy there in Minnesota. Been the tech guy for about 8-10 years or something like that, and I designed the website there. My first computer job was in 1978. I used to program in assembler language, so I was around before they invented the internet. I don't have any formal UI or user interface or user experience design training at all. I'm a completely self-taught. I just like to know why things work and how they work. So I just jump right in and try stuff. And probably my biggest asset is I'm not afraid to fail. I will just keep plugging away until something works. And I totally have a geek gene, as you can tell from my high school photo. I was a total geek in high school and to this day. So let's take a little run in the back into the history of the World Wide Web. This is the very first website ever created on the World Wide Web. The www stands for World Wide Web. And it was purely informational. It actually just talks about the World Wide Web itself. Many of its design elements still apply today. You've got the hyperlinks, text there, and some HTML. It's extremely lightweight. There's not any graphics or anything on there because internet connections were really slow. 1400 baud was like the norm there. We didn't have megabytes of data flying per second, megabits of data. So it was just, in the Ks. I had a 14,400K modem that was the dial-up. It was amazingly fast at the time, but it was slow. So there wasn't a whole lot of stuff going on. What we want to keep in mind here is the KISS principle, keep it simple, silly. This is moving into the Middle Ages around 1995. This is Apple's website from back then. This is the first time that we have frames. We have menus and graphic buttons that you can click. Hit counters was the big deal there. They counted how many times people came to their page. You've got element positioning now, things that are sitting in grids. This is the first time you start to see that kind of stuff. So navigation was the big deal there, trying to make it generally usable for navigation is what we want to take from the Middle Ages. The Renaissance happened in the late 90s, 1996, 97, 98. We started to get some new possibilities with Flash. Flash was a technology that did video from Adobe. Happily, we don't have Flash anymore. Everything is, nobody uses Flash anymore. Most of the browsers don't even support it. But we started to get interaction, moving images. These buttons would spin or bulb out. It was very garish, new neon colors, and people starting to work with 3D. So this is also when we started to, Google was just coming into play. Yahoo was the big search engine at the time, and Google came in, and search engine optimization was the big deal there. Then moving into the early aughts, 2002, 2003, we started getting cascading style sheets. This is the first time that we really separated content from the design delivery itself. There was a whole section of code for content, and then all the pages had a cascading style sheet, so the pages looked very, very similar. It was a lot more easy to design that way and make it consistent throughout your entire site, because you had the style sheet for that went from each site, and usability was the big key here during the Enlightenment. Now, the Industrial Revolution, this is around 2007. We started to get to Web 2.0. Social media came into play. We had started to get really interactive content. This is really the start of where we are in the world today. Keyword optimization was the big watchword there. We started thinking more about not just outbound links, but inbound links, trying to get people to link to you for tagging, authoring, RSS feeds, that kind of thing. And then we move into today. We have a much cleaner look, a lot better uses of white space. Your colors are not quite so garish, but your graphics are larger. We get also responsive design. So responsive design is so that it doesn't matter what device your website is on, it will automatically resize and restyle for the size of the screen that you're looking at. That's responsive design. So that's the basic history, and so everything I learned about website design, I started learning from Hannibal Lecter. And so this is Hannibal Lecter on website design.
First principles, Clarice. Simplicity. Read Marcus Aurelius. Of each particular thing, ask, what is it in itself? What is its nature? What does he do, this man you seek?
He kills women.
No, that is incidental. What is the first and principal thing he does? What needs does he serve by killing?
Anger. Social acceptance and sexual frustrations.
No, he covets. That is his nature. And how do we begin to covet, Clarice? Do we seek out things to covet? Make an effort to answer now.
No. We just...
No, we begin by coveting what we see every day. Don't you feel eyes moving over your body, Clarice? And don't your eyes seek out the things you want?
So we covet, and our purpose in website design is to try to determine who our audience is and what they covet. What do they want? What are they looking for? What problems are they trying to solve? What needs do they meet? Why do they come to our website? What questions do they have? Those are the things that we want to consider ourselves with as far as our primary purpose in website design. So there are 6 steps to success, and I'll summarize them quickly here first. Number 1, use WordPress. I'll get to why later. The next is laying the groundwork. What is your purpose? Hannibal Lecter talked a little bit about that as well. The next question you need to answer is, do I design or modify? Am I going to start from scratch, or am I going to start with someone else's baseline? And the next big principle, the next big step is steal. Steal ideas. We'll get to why that's an ethical thing to do. Get good tools, and then finally, go. Just start. That's probably the hardest thing and the most important thing. So, why WordPress? First, WordPress is free. It's an open source content management system. Has over 3,000 free templates and over 30,000 free plugins that you can use to solve almost any problem out there. It's a straightforward content management system. There's 3 big ones out there. The first one is WordPress. The next is as far as market share is concerned is Joomla, and then Drupal are the 3 open source ones. There's also other ones as well, but I am endorsing WordPress personally, me, Jeff Spencer. NA has no opinion on WordPress, but I do. So it's the easiest content management system to use. If you can write a good Word document and navigate your way around the ins and outs of Word, anything more than just straight typing, you can use WordPress. It's that easy. And as I said, its market share is 31% of all websites on the internet. There are over 1 billion URLs in use today. 1 billion. Of those, about 180 million are actually active, and 31% of those are WordPress. The websites that are actually content management system sites, WordPress has a 60% market share. That means it's huge. The latest version is not 4.7, the latest version is 4.9, and they've had even more downloads than 4.7. So that's a huge user base. And with a huge user base comes a massive support base. Hands down, WordPress is the most popular CMS out there. There's consulting companies that do nothing but WordPress. On top of that, you have local WordCamp conferences. These are just like NA, actually they're very much like service symposiums, but they're focused on WordPress and web design. So they're lots of fun, and there are way fewer people with mental illness there. So it's a little bit more enjoyable in certain situations. So there's also lots and lots of local user groups and meetups. You can work with. In fact, I was at a user group just last night, actually, here in Minneapolis. They're all free, and people are really friendly and really helpful. So WordPress, because it's easy and straightforward, it's going to be a lot easier for me to find someone to take my place when it's time for me to rotate off, and that's really important. So, groundwork. What is your purpose? This is what Hannibal was talking about. What does he do? This man you seek. Who is your audience, and what do they need? What questions are they trying to answer? What problems are they trying to solve? When you're trying to work out your purpose, consider writing you're developing your first website, say the Central Minnesota website, because you have a website on anyminnesota.org. What do you want it to do? What problems do you want it to solve? Actually write out a proposal. And if you click on this link, you'll find a web design proposal that you can download and just fill out. If for no other reason, it helps you to focus what you're doing and not get distracted with all little bells and whistles. And it also minimizes miscommunication as well. So you don't get people making assumptions about what they think it should look like, and you making different assumptions about what you think it should look like, and people get disappointed. When things are written down, it brings some clarity to your purpose, and it focuses your efforts. So who is your audience? This is an NA website, I assume, that we're looking to develop. So I'll give you a hint. You have 3 basic audiences. You've got the general public, you've got professionals in the chemical dependency area, and you've got NA members. These different audiences have different kinds of problems, and they have different questions that they're trying to answer. When we developed the anyminnesota.org for the first time, we went through and put ourselves in the chairs of the different audiences and just brainstormed questions that they would ask. And I've actually, this is a link to that website requirements document. So you can click on that link and find all the initial questions that we asked, and maybe you can find some more We didn't actually answer all of the questions. Some of them were a little bit silly, but that's part of the fun of brainstorming. As far as the problems, what problems are they trying to solve? This is also a link to writing user stories. And so that's a really good article about user stories and help you to deal with or to analyze the problems that they're trying to solve and how we're going to, find other problems and then prioritize them and then put together a design to solve those problems. Next is to design or modify. You can't build a site from scratch, and this is that link is actually to an article that'll show you how. In order to build a site from scratch, you got to know how to code. You need to know HTML5. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and CSS is Cascading Style Sheets, and JavaScript is a object-oriented programming language based on Java, and it actually runs in the browser, so it doesn't do any calls to the server, so it's very efficient as far as that's concerned. But the bottom line is there's a whole ton of coding. Or your other option is to use a template or a theme. When you're thinking about this is the age-old question, right? To buy or to build. And the only reason you should build your own website is, number one, you need it to be screaming fast. But more importantly, it solves a problem that nobody else has ever solved. It's brand new. If you're, on the other hand, what you're looking for is just a wheel, they already invented it. Okay, so just get one and use it. Okay, I've never done coding from scratch, and I used to code in the lowest level of code that there is. Nobody hardly develops in assembler language anymore. So I don't know of anybody who does. At any rate, that's screaming fast, but I use templates all the time. The number one reason is that they have color schemes that they've already developed. They've got layouts that are really nice and typography schemes that are cool. And I don't have to worry about making those design choices because if I have to, make those choices from scratch, I'm going to make a bad decision. There's some really awful color schemes out there that are just, oof. And I don't want to be that guy making an ugly website based on ugly colors. So, the templates already say, this theme has these colors and they all fit together. I can just, if I like it, go. There's over 3,000 free ones out there, so you got the pick of the litter. You can do anything really you want to with that. Steal. Yes, theft. I'm talking about absolute theft. So that's supposed to go away. Good. So Jim Jarmusch is a film director, and he says, nothing is original. Steal from anywhere that resonates with inspiration or fuels your imagination. Select only things to steal from that speak directly to your soul. If you do this, your work and theft will be authentic. Authenticity is invaluable. Originality is non-existent. This is absolutely true. Everything that I've done on my website, I didn't make up out of whole cloth. I looked at other people's work and said, I like that. I'm going to do something like that. So if you see something you like, just take it, look at it, do it, okay? However, I'm not talking about stealing other people's actual work. So don't take people's graphics. Don't copy their text unless you get permission. You can use graphics with their permission too, or their audio or their video. Just don't do it. That's just mean. And besides, you could get into trouble with copyright infringement, and you don't want legal problems. So there's all kinds of resources out there for Getting graphics, that's probably the #1 thing that people use. So I have a slide later on that will go through some of those. Tools, #1, WordPress. As I mentioned before, this is the start WordPress. That's the base of it, the skeleton of your website. The BMLT, this is the basic meeting list toolbox. There are presentations at the Symposium on the BMLT. This is the meeting list database that we use to manage all the meetings in our area, in our region actually, for every single area. And so we update the database, and the meeting lists get updated automatically. I can talk a little bit about that more after the presentation, Chad. So Elementor is a drag and drop editor. So you can just drag and drop elements onto the page without having to do any coding or anything. It's just, just drag and drop and go. It's very nice. My entire website is based on Elementor. Every single page is built with Elementor. The events calendar, this is by Modern Tribe. This is the events calendar that we use on our website as well. We also, that is integrated into WooCommerce, so we can do online event ticketing. And I recommend WooCommerce. That's about as popular as WordPress. FileZilla. FileZilla is an FTP client. This FTP is File Transfer Protocol. This is how we move files up and down from our website from the back end. FileZilla is the easiest FTP client out there, and there's lots and lots of videos available and tutorials on FileZilla. Cloudflare is something you probably haven't heard about. This is a CDN. It is a content delivery network. Basically, it's a cache in the cloud of your entire website, so that when you use your words, Jeff. So when people, it speeds up your website, so they don't always have to go to your site to get specific content. It's available on the content network. So all across the world, it level sets the experience for different individuals. Genesis is a template framework. I also use the Genesis framework to get my templates. These are paid; they're not free. But the framework itself is extremely flexible, and it's screaming fast. And all their templates are just totally solid. So I've used some pretty sketchy templates. You do get what you pay for a lot of times. So we use Genesis. I'm very, very happy with it. YouTube, you say? Yes, YouTube. YouTube is where you will find video tutorials on anything that you want to do. Just ask a question and there's a video for it. Somebody's put together a video and it's out there for free. You want to know how to do something, they'll just walk you through it. You just play a little bit, stop, do that step, go back, play a little bit more, stop, do that step. It's brilliant. It'll teach you everything you need to know about everything. That's how I learned Elementor. And Google, learn how to ask questions. All these images, by the way, are linked to the individual, into the individual products. So you can actually, you're supposed to be linked. I guess they're not. But these are images and media resources that are all free to use. So there's no licensing on any of these places. These are all links to the individual places, and even more gives you even more places to find images that you don't have to worry about being copyrighted. Unsplash is my favorite. That's almost all the images that are on our website were found on Unsplash. Then our last step is go. Have a bias for action. Listen to those keys clicking. I'll tell you what, as far as a bias for action is concerned, just do something. Yeah, something, anything. Don't worry about making mistakes or bad choices, because any mistake can be fixed. Any choice can be reconsidered. Guidelines come later. Don't worry about guidelines. Typically, guidelines are all about stopping you from doing things. Don't worry about guidelines. Guidelines should be describing how things get done, and so take some action, and after you've gotten into the groove, then you can share your best practices. Don't call them guidelines, best practices. So listen to those keys clicking. That's what I wanted to talk. There's a little story with that, actually. When we were working on the first iteration of naminnesota.org, we used Joomla instead of WordPress, but we went whole hog. But before we did that, we just kind of talked for a long time. Committees get together, they talk. Yappity yap yap yap. So we got together and talked, and didn't actually accomplish anything for about 6 months. Finally, Kit, our regional chair, came in to crash one of our meetings, and all he did is he just came in and said, "Hey, I don't hear any keys clicking. I want to hear keys clicking." And it just really spoke to me. It just hit me. Like, yeah, there's no progress without keys clicking. Sometimes any motion is better than no motion at all. Even if you're heading in the wrong direction, you're going to learn something. So just do something, right? So the next thing to know that's important is that anything worth doing is worth doing badly. Now, this is a quote by G.K. Chesterton, and to be fair, Chesterton was talking about being active in life and not outsourcing our life to other people because you don't feel like you can do it well. Like that patio I was showing you earlier, it's full of flaws. It's the first flagstone patio I ever put together, but it was worth doing badly. Right? Because I feel really, really good about that patio, with all its flaws, it's like I got it done, and I got it done before winter, so that's even better. So don't worry about making mistakes, because good decisions come from experience, and experience comes from making bad decisions. So even if you make a bad decision, that's not, so what? Failure is progress. Nobody learned anything by doing it right. So, there's an old story about Thomas Edison, and a reporter was asking him. He reportedly took over 1,000 tries to come up with a working light bulb. He tried 1,000. He failed 1,000 times. Actually, more than that. Over 1,000 times he failed trying to invent the light bulb. Well, so this reporter comes and asks him, it's like, God, what kept you going after 1,000 failures? He said, those weren't failures. I just learned 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb. And his point is well taken, because probably the most frequent thought I have in my head is, well, that didn't work. I wonder if this will. Because, nothing's perfect. I mean, you just got to try. You just got to keep trying, because you're good enough, you're smart enough, and doggone it, people like you. Oh, and don't forget, user testing. You got to get your site, before you go live, get your site in front of some select users and ask them to just play with it. And watch them play with it. See what they do, because the things that you designed expecting them to do, they won't. And they will teach you how different people use use their website. And I don't usually test my code, but when I do it in production. So you don't get a choice to do user testing. You have to do user testing. User testing will happen whether you do it up front and fix it before you go into production, or you can put it in front of your users in production and then they'll just bitch about it. So, and then you have to scramble to fix it. So test your code.
Sit. Go ahead.
Go ahead and what?
Write.
What are you doing?
I'm writing, like you'll be, when you start punching those keys. Is there a problem?
No, I'm just thinking.
No. No thinking. That comes later. You write your first draft with your heart. And you rewrite with your head. The first key to writing is to write, not to think.
Jesus.
So the first key to writing is to write. Basically, start where you are. Use what you have, do what you can. Arthur Ashe. Arthur Ashe was a tennis player, for those of you who don't know. So that's my thing. The last piece I wanted to know about, just from a resource perspective, is massive online massive open online courses, MOOCs. These are all different websites that will offer you free courses on how to do anything, and web design is a big piece of it. So go ahead and check some of those out. edX has a really nice web design section, so does Coursera. Most of these sites have they're free, and if you want a certification, then it costs you some money. But you get the knowledge for free. If reading articles isn't your gig, but you want to focus on a specific topic, maybe one of these is for you. So check them out. Here's some additional resources for you. 15 ways to ruin your website. WP Beginner is a really good resource for WordPress. A Web Designer Depot, Smashing Magazine. There's some links here for search engine optimization and even more web design resources for beginners. So that's my presentation.